Hey, why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. What did one snowman say to the other snowman? Smells like carrots. And why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Cheesy, lame, dad jokes, whatever you want to call them, humor. Hey, we're going to talk about humor and what it does to the human brain and how it can change your ability to persuade, motivate, and influence. Humor can build rapport, capture attention, builds a positive emotional connection, relaxes people, and makes them more open to persuasion and influence. Let's do it.
Maximize your influence. Kurt Mortensen is the author of Persuasion IQ, Laws of Charisma, and the best-selling book, Maximum Influence.
Glad you're here in the world of persuasion, motivation, and influence. Kurt Mortensen here. This is Maximize Your Influence, podcast number 547. We can be found on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and iTunes. Tell your family, friends, and enemies about the podcast. Do appreciate feedback and supporting the podcast. Hey, any thoughts? Email, send them at Kurt, K-U-R-T, at MaximizeYourInfluence.com. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this humor. It works. It creates positive associations. It makes people like you. It releases the right chemicals in the brain so you are more likable. You are more trustworthy. We're going to talk about that today. And if you don't feel funny, that's okay. You can borrow humor. We're going to go into that. But I hope everyone's doing well, achieving their goals, becoming more persuasive, more influential, and really mastering that self-persuasion mindset we've been talking about, reprogramming your brain for success and giving yourself permission to win. So let's start off with the persuasion this week, ninja. Now, a lot of times we do the blunder, we see that, but every once in a while we see a ninja. But this is a great application of FITD, known as foot in the door. Basically, it's better to persuade people a little bit at a time than a lot bit at a time. I know you want to be one and done, but that's not how the brain works. For example, it's easier to persuade people over 10 meetings than one big meeting. If you're trying to get someone to change, get them to change a little bit at a time is much easier than a lot bit at a time. So here it is. This goes to the airlines. This one was Delta Airlines, I noticed, but they all do this. This is pretty standard now that you're going to see this, that you're going somewhere, you're booking a ticket. In fact, I was just talking to someone who's booking a ticket to Europe. They bought the cheapest flight possible. You couldn't bring a bag. You couldn't reserve a seat. You weren't allowed to breathe the air. Well, they'll let you breathe the air, but just minimum, you get the seat, nothing more. I'm not even sure if they get food. And so they got the cheapest ticket. But then what happens? They wait a while. They've got your money, but they're like, oh, well, hey, do you want to buy a bag? You want to bring a bag? And, that's $30. Oh, you want to reserve your seats? Well, that's $55. Oh, do you want to board earlier? Do you want a cushion for that seat? Now, I'm being a little crazy here, but that's kind of how it looks. You get basic, and then a little bit at a time. By the time you're done, it would have been cheaper for you to buy the more expensive ticket the day of when you bought the cheapest ticket than to buy a little bit at a time. A seat here, food here, check-in baggage here, and that's how the brain works. Cruises do that too. If you've ever taken a cruise, dirt cheap. I mean, you've got this basic ticket, but then the time has passed. You're like, oh, do you want unlimited drinks? Cha-ching! Oh, do you want an outside cabin with a view instead of an inside cabin? Cha-ching! Oh, are you going to just stay on the ship, or do you want to go out on these excursions? Oh, you're not going to just want the basic dining. You need the more expensive, most popular dining. Cha-ching! See what we're doing here? I know this might make you a little resistant, a little mad, but that's how it's done. It's easier a little bit at a time than all at once. That is known as foot in the door. Some people call it sequential request. But think about your offer, your product, your service. Many times when you're getting a lot of resistance, what you're asking is too big. Break it down to smaller pieces, smaller yeses. And it's easier for the human brain over that span of time to say yes to all of those instead of the one big yes. You probably heard me talk about this study. It's one of my faves. Psychology students were approached. Hey, will you participate in this study early Saturday morning? I mean, big ask. And it's like 24% said yes, but then when they just kind of divided it up, smaller yeses. Hey, will you participate? Yeah. Saturday available? Yeah. It's early in the morning. It's this time. Can you come? Yeah. More than doubled to 56%. And it's so easy. Instead of one big ask, it was 3 smaller yeses. Do the same thing with your product, your service, your ideas, or getting yourself or other people to change. Now, since we're talking about humor, that brings us to our geeky Scarly article. This comes from Stanford University. Of course, the link will be at maximizeyourinfluence.com along with the specials, information on product, service, trainings, coachings, and at influenceuniversity.com. In fact, that's our special this week, influenceuniversity.com, lifetime membership, 90% off. And that link's in your email or at maximizeyourinfluence.com under podcast 547. And remember, there's also a free area of Influence University. It's basically all the trainings, all the audios, all the books, everything you need in one spot, including the 52-week advanced training, basically a new tool every week for the next 12 months. So this comes from Dr. Aker. We've talked about her before with stories, and Deborah Schifferfriend and a few others, where they got together and said, all right, should we use humor in the workplace? And they found many of the same things, that humor helps employee morale and well-being, helps with creativity, job satisfaction, and work performance. So you can see what that could do to a corporation or to a company. But individually, humor mutes negative emotions, helps us tolerate pain, and helps us deal with stress. And even within a team, humor enhances group communication, effectiveness, and it fosters creativity and innovation. I mean, with all those benefits, we need to hire comedians or something, have a daily laugh. Humor works, even if they're just smiling on the inside. Hey, start a meeting with humor. Assign someone else to have a joke. There are YouTube videos. There's other things that you can show that can get a smile, that can get a laugh. Even if it's a super serious topic, you can say, all right, let's do our daily laugh. Let's talk about it. Thinking on your feet better. All of these things can help in the workplace. So humor isn't just the best medicine. It's a powerful tool for individually achieving success and for companies and teams to achieve success. So there was a study done by Hodge and Cronin that looked at 737 CEOs. And 98% of those CEOs preferred job candidates with a sense of humor. That same survey showed that 84% of top executives perceived that employees with a sense of humor were better at their jobs than their less humorous counterparts. They also found that executives got rewarded for their sense of humor. In performance evaluations, people rated their bosses higher, the ones that were funny, than those that weren't. So basically, those that had a sense of humor did better on performance evaluations. And this is important. A Gallup poll showed that 30% of U.S. employees are engaged at their work. They're active, they're working hard, they're making it happen, while 50% on the side are looking for new jobs and watching for new openings. They're not happy, and a sense of humor could, I'm not going to say guarantee, could fix that. Now in public speaking, one study found that humor linked the speaker to having more confidence and competence. And another study found that negotiators who followed up the phrase, my final offer is, with humor, I'll throw in my pet frog, my pen, my shoes, any of those things yielded 18% higher concessions. And that's true right before the call to action, right before your close. A little humor, a little smile can really make that transition a little smoother. And it improves your memory. So at the University of California, Loma Linda, they brought in some older adults, separated them into 2 groups. One of those groups watched funny videos. The other group just sat silently for 20 minutes. Then both groups took a short-term memory test. The ones watching the funny videos saw 43% improvement compared only to 20% improvement in the non-humor group. So we know humor increases connections, improves relationships, helps us bond with strangers, Because we know it facilitates social bonding, increases trust, and even generosity. Because when you laugh, you take in more oxygen, it stimulates your heart, lungs, and muscles, and increases the endorphins that are released by your brain. So this is not going to be one and done. Benefits of humor and laughter build on themselves over time. Recalling a moment of shared laughter, a funny experience, helps a relationship. And humor, when done right, is off the charts, going to help you bond with people, be more successful, and open the door to persuasion and influence. So humor just changes the brain. We talked about the endorphins, the oxytocin, and what happens too when that punchline hits, the brain experiences a sudden shift in cognitive processing. It actually activates the brain's reward center, releasing those neurotransmitters we talked about, even dopamine, which create feelings of pleasure and amusement. And if you're doing a presentation or training, it makes the presentation more engaging, easier to listen to, and more fun. We've talked about on the podcast edutainment. That is the shift, especially as you get younger in the workplace. People don't want to just be educated, they want to be entertained while they're educated. So humor is a powerful tool that creates rapport. You seem more friendly, more accepting, makes people smile, releases the right chemicals, releases tension, and increases trust. I'm telling you, off the charts, something that you can add to any aspect of your life. Another fun thing about humor, it also distracts your audience from the negative arguments they could have. It diverts their attention away from the negative context of the message. So it interferes with the ability of your prospect to carefully scrutinize your message and engage in counterarguments. Basically, if they're laughing at your jokes, they're paying less attention to the content of your message. Now, are there any drawbacks? Sure. I know a lot of humor I've used in the past is now offensive. I'm like, it is? I mean, wow. And you have to really look for it to be offensive, but some people bring up things and twist it here and turn it here, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to use that one anymore. It wasn't meant to be offensive. I still don't think it's offensive. Other people don't think it's offensive, but every once in a while, people find it offensive. The humor needs to be relevant. I mean, just because you got to laugh, that's good, but it has to be relevant to your message. So humor must be used cautiously. It needs to be appropriate, or your audience could turn against you. But bottom line, I've always said they're either going to laugh with you or feel sorry for you if it doesn't work or get mad at you. I mean, if you're not good at telling jokes, don't start. Have somebody else do it. Borrow it from someone else telling it, from a YouTube video, from a meme. Otherwise, it could get irritating and have the opposite effect. So modify your humor so it's appropriate for your audience. Now, I'm not asking you to be a stand-up comedian, but you can get someone to smile or laugh, even if it's on the inside. Keeps their minds from wandering, it re-energizes their soul, puts them in a good mood, eases their daily tension, reduces stress. This is something we can all work on and improve. Practice your humor. Make sure it works before you need it. That is an important piece to your success and to applying this. Now, what is the best type of humor? Well, anything that gets them to laugh, as long as it's appropriate, relevant, and not offensive. Learn to laugh at yourself. I mean, self-deprecating humor is a great way to connect with your audience. You're real. You make mistakes. Embarrassing moments is in that category. You're a real person. They feel more comfortable around you. So with that, let's go to listener email.
Oh, boy!
This comes from Juan in Puerto Rico. And this follows along with our theme today. He says, I consider myself a funny person, and I can connect with most people. Although I'm trying to figure out, is humor helping or hurting my sales? Some people are laughing, we connect, and some people won't even smile. What should I do? Everyone enjoys a good laugh, but there are people that are serious, that want to make sure that they can trust you, that you're the expert, that you can solve their problem before you start the humor. And there's others that want to connect and will enjoy that humor. So if you're not getting a lot of smile, you don't think humor's appropriate yet, let them know why you're there, what's in it for them, that you're the expert, you can solve their problem. Then you can add the humor. Other people, you can have the humor up front. That's the key, is to read the person, to persuade them how they want to be persuaded. Everyone enjoys a good laugh, but there's some people that are pretty serious and it takes a little bit more to get them to laugh, and they might not want to laugh until they know that you're there with the purpose, for a reason, to solve their main problem. So how do we apply this? Know your audience. So that includes doing your research, tailoring your jokes, make sure you understand their demographic and even culture and their personality. And it's been amazing to me, what's funny in Italy is not funny in the Middle East. What's funny in the Middle East is not funny in the United States. What's funny in the United States is not funny in Korea. That's why it's so important if you go to a different culture, you bounce your jokes, your humor off a translator, off a local person, because that makes all the difference in the world. And this includes reading the person. Are they the person that's ready for humor right away, ready to laugh? Or do you need to prove your worth first, then add the humor? Another one I mentioned is keep it relevant. They might laugh, but then they're like, what's this got to do with your product, your service, your industry, this presentation? You use humor to highlight benefits, to address common pain, or if it's getting a little too serious, to inject a little levity into the conversation without detracting from the message. Now, you already know we're not making fun of them or their industry. You got to be really careful of that. I got in trouble with that when I was speaking to a group of over 1,000 chiropractors about patient retention, building trust, and I was going to be funny. I love to use a little humor, and this joke got a laugh quite a bit, and so I started the presentation off like this. Group of chiropractors. How many chiropractors does it take to change a light bulb? Nobody laughed. There were no smiles in the room. I knew I was in trouble. I should have done some self-deprecating humor here. Again, no laughter at all, especially when I said, well, it only takes one chiropractor, but it takes 10 visits. Now, other industries, other people will laugh at this, but a group of chiropractors, that could be a sore spot. No laughter, no smiles. Be very careful there. Also test to see if they're offensive. Even though it's not designed to be offensive, people find offense. Here's one that is offending people, but it's not offensive. When I talk about how do you catch a monkey? You catch a monkey by taking a coconut, putting a hole in it, just big enough to put their hand in, put some nuts, some treats in there, and they stick their hand in there, and they make a fist with their treats, but they can't get out of the coconut. Of course, the coconut's tied to a tree, and they can't get away. And I use it when we talk about habits, things we're holding on to. It's a great example. People understand it, but then people have been coming up to me and say, well, that's not nice. They caught the monkey. They killed the monkey. I'm like, no, it's just an example. I didn't say they killed the monkey. They were all upset that this monkey got caught. That offended people. So I don't use that one as much as I used to. Depends on the audience and the situation. Practice your humor. Practice your timing is important with your humor. If it helps, use visual aids. If it helps, use a video. If it helps, borrow it from someone else. If it helps, tell a funny story, embarrassing moment if that's easier for you. Deliver that humor with confidence. Be natural. However you want to apply it. It could be a joke. It could be a story, an embarrassing moment. It could be self-deprecating. Most people love to laugh, and it makes us feel good. Especially during a negotiation when it gets tense, a little humor can diffuse that tension. Right before your close, your call to action, a little joke, a little smile, a little something, something can make a huge difference. I saw a presenter once diffuse the audience right up front. Says, hey, how many of you out there think I'm going to try to sell you something? And people would raise their hands. And the presenter said, well, you won't be disappointed. A little laughter, a little diffusion, reduce that resistance. That is what you're looking for. So use the humor strategically, be authentic, make sure you practice. Remember, humor builds rapport, grabs people's attention, creates that emotional connection with the dopamine and the oxytocin released in the brain. People become more relaxed, less stressed, creates positive associations with you, your message, your product, your service, your company, and it opens the door to persuasion and influence. So there you have the secret sauce, the thing I know you can work on. I know you haven't arrived. I know you can add more humor, and it's going to help you too. It gives you confidence, gives you courage. If you're giving a presentation, whether it's one-on-one or to a group of people, and they laugh right that first couple of minutes, it gives you a little confidence, helps erode that fear away, and really helps the presentation be more persuasive. So there you have it, podcast 547. Add some humor, borrow some humor, join a joke of the day email or texting list. that can help you gather ones that are going to work, that match your personality. And I encourage all of you to create a joke list. You hear a funny joke, write it down. A funny story, maybe it's a link to a funny video, to a meme. Write it down so when you need it, you have a list. I promise you that's something you will always use. So there you go. Apply it, use it. It'll make a huge difference in your persuasion and influence. So remember, the special is lifetime membership to influenceuniversity.com. Check that out at influenceuniversity.com/special, or check us out at maximizeyourinfluence.com. Become a better influencer. Add a little humor to your life and your presentation, and go out and persuade with power.